The news is that the founder and flag bearer of the GFP has died now.
Okay.
What is not clear is what that means for the election. And I'm going to revert to the legal mind to tell us law. So, Sky, what does the law say about this situation as far as the election that is happening? But the election is 39 days away, right? Today is 29th. So if you have 30 days in November plus 7, 37, and we have 2 days left in October. So you have 39 days. So, yeah, roughly 40 days, right? Today is 29, 30th, 31st. So 3 days. So we have 40 days for the election. Let's hear the confirmation of the incident first, and then
tree.
Yeah. So what?
Enra bia humachi be 4 o'clock na ye frɛ abusunya ba ka kyerɛ sɛ ba bia ye maame Akua Donkor egina no wonyina yie nti ye bisa no hospital kra ya wo no me yan sɛ wo rich hospital wa kra nti ho abobu na ni ye dia ya ye mun sɛ bisa doctor no sɛ ebe ekɔsɛ no so ese wo ma ye no operation ni adeti omudi emfidie ne enframa ni moja ni suesi so enti ye hwɛ akiri kakra na aduro bi a wo betwura ma ye bia ye momodere ni ento ye boy ho modere bia aginai enti free nra ahomache no ade tie ye beda 10 o'clock mu a ena ye sa frɛ back say ye maame Akua Donkor adan bunkum so odaya wansore na chese akoya reho sempa ama busiana ya yedu yedi wa bobo nti sa wote ya ne kure ni maame Akua Donkor wa free mu
na sabi o mhye bisa se o yare che
da bi wa nyare anche ye kura ya ante ne yade yesa ya ante ne yade yesa de ti ya ne se wo yare na ho dodo no ama ye de ne ko rich hospital occupying or rich hospital. And they say, Nyamian Samana Mechiazi, or the FC Maja Abusiano.
Now, that's before what is speaking to a son of Akua Donkor. So the incident occurred dawn today. They were called to be informed that she had been unwell, sent to the Ridge Hospital, and she did not make it. And the question, the point was that he wasn't aware that she was ill for a long time. So this seems pretty sudden.
Yeah, makes you rest in peace.
Now, I don't think we've had this situation before where 40 days to an election, the flag bearer of a major political party or a political party dies. Is there clarity on what we should do, what the country should do?
This Republican constitution, that's what I remember immediately. I don't think that has happened.
It hasn't happened before.
So it's a very novel
situation.
If my memory serves me correctly. And it appears that this particular era has provided a lot of constitutional issues that would agitate minds. Immediately, if you look at the provisions relating to the election of president, there's no express provision regarding a situation like that. But yes, but if you go to the omnibus provisions that deal with representation of the people, then you have what appears to be an answer to the situation. So if you go to Article 50 of the Constitution, it deals with election of candidates.
All right.
The very relevant one says that it's actually Clause 4.
50 Clause 4?
Yeah. It
says 51-4?
No, 50 Clause 4.
50 Clause 4, okay.
Yes. It says, where at the close of nominations, but before the election of one of the candidates dies. You understand? Where at the close of nominations, but before the election, one of the candidates dies, a further period of 10 days shall be allowed for nominations. And where the death occurs at any time within 25 days before the election in that constituency or unit shall be postponed for 21 days. Now, okay, so on Article 50, Clause 4 of the Constitution 1992, and it says, and I quote, where at the close of nominations, but before the election, one of the candidates dies, a further period of 10 days shall be allowed for nominations. And when the death occurs at any time within 25 days before the election in that constituency or unit shall be postponed for 21 days. Now, I know people will ask the question, well, I mean, this is a presidential election. It may well have nothing to do with this particular provision. But let's remember that Ghana is taking as one constituency, in my respectful view.
For the presidential election.
Yeah, that's right, when you are dealing with presidential elections. And therefore, if we are to look at the purpose for this particular provision, it's possible to argue that since if you deal with the specific provisions on presidential elections, there is no reference to the matter, we can lean on the provisions of Article 50 of the Constitution to cure the mischief there may be, if any.
Can you repeat what you said again?
What I'm saying is that if you look at the election of president, I take you to that provision, which is in so qualifications of president, election of president. So qualification is under Article 62, the side note. If you go to 63, election of president, if you read those provisions, there's nothing on about
a death of a presidential candidate for a national election.
Exactly. The only provision that, to the best of my understanding, deals with the subject matter of the death of a candidate
is the one you read, 50,
exactly,
which in the first reading suggests parliamentary, but upon reflection could be
exactly, because Ghana is to be taken to be one constituency when you're dealing with the presidential elections. You get it?
So they said something about 25 days. They said that if the person dies and the time between the person's death and the election is more than 25 days, the party can nominate another person.
Yes.
But if the person dies within 25 days to an election, then you push the election forward.
Yes.
So now we have 40 days. So
the first requirement is
you are going to give the party 10 days to choose a candidate.
If my understanding of the law presently constituted.
So the GFP must find a way of submitting a name for the EC to replace Akua Donkor.
Exactly.
Now, what? Okay, so we don't want to overcomplicate matters. So that's the logical, simple explanation. If they do that successfully, so let's do the first scenario. If they do that successfully, the EC will simply replace her name with the name of the new person.
Yes.
And because they would have done that in 10 days, we still have how many days? 30 days to the election. So they will still fall within the 25. So they'll basically be able to change.
Just to deal with it, yeah.
Now, what if the party fails to do this?
Well, then he's taking that the candidate has withdrawn from the elections.
That's how it should be taken.
Yeah, that's
because right. your reading is that you cannot leave the candidate
on the ballot
because the person is dead.
Yeah. So if she wins the election, then what happens?
You give it
and
to
I
the
don't
next
think
person.
that the framers
If you win the election, give it to the next person.
As a running mate?
Yes.
She has a running mate.
She has a running mate. So why doesn't the running mate take over?
Yeah, the Constitution doesn't provide in express terms that. So
the
for
party
instance,
must
if you
decide
deal with
those
a provision on the vice president,
Yeah.
how he ascends to the office of president following the death of the president.
Yeah.
The Constitution is clear in its language that in the absence of the president following death or resignation or whatever sickness, the vice president shall perform the functions of president until after so and so.
But this is a candidate.
In this case, there's no provision like that.
What about the CI? Doesn't the CI say anything about candidate? Because the Constitution is broad. The CI is specific. Doesn't CI have anything to say about what happens to a party's ticket when a candidate dies?
The CI you were talking about, forgotten the
is 127.
Also adopts the language of the Constitution as I read to you a short while ago. Article 50.
I actually want to let me read the CI, the relevant portion I have, and then you compare that to what you've had. So this is CI 127, 17.1, death of a candidate. Where an election is to be held and a candidate dies on the eve of the election, and proof of the death of the candidate is given to the returning officer before the commencement of the poll, the returning officer shall put on hold proceedings in relation to the elections to inform the commission. 2. The commission shall, upon receipt of information under the sub-regulation 1, adjourn the poll and allow a period of 10 days for the political party to which the candidate belonged to nominate a new candidate. 3. Where the deceased candidate was an independent candidate for the commission shall not permit the nomination of another person, and proceedings in relation to the election shall continue. 4. Where a new candidate is nominated by a political party, the commission shall adjourn elections in the constituency of the deceased candidate for a period of 21 days for the day of the nomination of the new candidate. So this seems like parliamentary.
That's what I'm saying, that you might be led to come to that conclusion. But if you contextualize it, like I said, Ghana, for purposes of presidential elections, is to be seated in one constituency. Now, if that interpretation, in my respectful view, holds, then what it means then is that we are to take the whole Ghana as one constituency. And therefore, because Akua Donkor, by reason of his expiry, is no longer validly a candidate in elections, the provision should be invoked to apply.
But why doesn't the CI simply provide that when the candidate dies, replace them with their running mate? Because I thought that was the purpose of asking for a running mate. Did you get the point?
No, I think the general purpose, the Constitution states that there shall be a vice president of the republic.
Which is why you have a running mate.
Exactly.
But why can't I win election and then appoint a vice president when I win?
No, because the Constitution says at the time of filing, you need to file someone.
That's what I'm saying. So let's take your time. I'm saying that if the Constitution was just looking for a vice president, they didn't need to use the election route. If the Constitution's purpose was just looking for a vice president, because you can appoint a vice president.
No, it is only in limited circumstances.
But when Mills died and Mahama became president, he didn't appoint his vice president.
So the Constitution provides.
Hear me out.
Okay.
I'm making a point.
Okay.
I'm saying, and I'm not a lawyer.
Okay.
I'm saying that if the purpose of the running mate requirement was purely for vice president, or if the intention of having a running mate was just to have a vice president to satisfy that there shall be a vice president, I think it's a bit laborious to use an election route. I feel, in addition to the fact that we need a vice president, there should have been, or there ought to have been, a contemplation of the running mate also replacing the candidate in the event of their death. Do you understand me? Because it's a double thing. You want a vice president because when the president dies, somebody will take over. And now, in the process of selecting that president, if the person dies in that process, you don't stop the president because he has a running mate who then takes over automatically.
I think that's a
layman's view.
My layman's retort to that would be that the selection of the running mate is a personal choice of the individual who has won an election at the party level. So voted for by the entire recognized electoral college of the party.
Yeah.
So it would be out of place to then grant that person an automatic replacement slot when that person was a personal choice.
Which is heavier.
So the party might not agree.
Let me push back with that. Hold on. Let me push back. Which is more serious? Death of a president or death of candidate? If a president upon his death can be replaced by an unelected vice president,
the vice president, you see, that's where
why can't a death of a president can be replaced by an unelected?
Hold on. You see, let's
take it one by one. Yes, I'm listening to you.
First of all, the president of the republic is elected on his own steam.
Yes, please.
Right?
Yes.
The vice president is also deemed to be elected on his own steam.
Is the vice president at an election?
Yes. The vice, there are two.
So it's a joint ticket. So the vice president is also elected.
He's also elected.
I get you. So the vice president's ascension is based on an election.
Exactly.
I get you.
And then also, the Constitution provides safeguards for the ascension to occur. You don't just say that because you are vice president. Exactly. Good. There must be a sitting of parliament.
Yeah.
You must swear the oath of office of president of the republic before members of parliament administered by the chief.
I agree with you. So in the same way, this is what my argument is. In the same way, they've chosen, the GFP has chosen Akua Donkor as their candidate.
Okay.
And because she's chosen somebody as her running mate. Okay. So I feel like what should happen is that maybe based on their constitution, her running mate should automatically ascend upon a ratification, based on the point you make up. Yeah. So maybe if they can say that it's not for economy and for time, let the running mate ascend upon a ratification or a resolution by the party. So the party can easily write to EC and say, because of time, we are letting the running mate ascend as the candidate, and this is a resolution from the party executives. Then the EC will basically say, are these signatures valid? Then we do the ratification, and then the party can then nominate another running mate, instead of saying, let's go through a whole process of the party choosing a new person. Because you see, we are talking about printing of ballots. you have 40 days to an election. We already told that some of the printers cannot print. So sometimes you must think about all of those things in making your judgment. So I would have said, interpreting this law, the party should write to the EC to nominate the running mate.
Yeah.
So that the running mate's picture can be sent there for the new printing to be done.
Bernard, you see,
whereas then the party can then select a new running mate later on.
okay, so let me answer the question this way. You see, we had something close to this situation when Professor Mills died. He was validly elected in Sunyani by the delegates of the NDC, except that there was not a filing of nominations.
Yes.
You understand? So the situations are different.
In the 2012 election, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Mills was validly elected in Sunyani against the likes of,
2012.
Funka and
Yeah.
that's right. So he was validly elected.
Okay.
It was about 6 months or so to the election. There was not a filing of nominations. So the circumstances are different.
His name hadn't been put there.
Exactly.
Yet. Okay.
What did the NDC do? The NDC simply, of course, there was.
They went to Congress.
Yeah, they
extraordinary Congress.
Yeah, they say hi, it's Mahama. So they affirmed Mahama as their running mate, as the candidate. In the case of, if they can do the same thing. They can go to Circle and stand there and say, as many as are in favor of so and so who support the man's elevation. Once it is deemed to conform to the rules, then there shouldn't be.
I agree with you, but I'm saying that you see the difference is that Mills died in July 24. Election was in December. Akua Donkor died October 29.
Yes.
Which is 40 days. Now, we don't know how efficient or how functioning GFP as a party is.
That's supposed to be the work of the Electoral Commission.
Very good.
Yes.
So when we come back, we'll deal with that. What process must GFP kick in to ensure that she can be replaced? Which is why CDD was questioning some of these parties, like one-man party or kind of thing, where you don't even know. So is there even a record of the Congress that elected her? Do we know who the general secretary of the party is? So like this morning, when we wanted information on her death, we spoke to her son. Of course, a family issue. Does the GFP have a national chairman that is known to the public? Do they have a youth organizer? Do they have a constituency organizer in your hometown?
Those records should be
Breakfast show. So this morning, we have been thrown into a bit of a conundrum by Akua Donkor's death. The flag bearer of the Ghana Freedom Party announced this morning through her son. And the clarity on what to do is not there because Constitution is not very explicit on what happens when a presidential candidate dies. Although some are saying that it means whatever the Constitution says for a parliamentary situation can apply to the nation because the Electoral Commission sees the country as one constituency, and that's why the chairperson of the EC is the national returning officer. So that the parliamentary seat, there are parliamentary returning officers, right? Richard Sky has been helping us here with the article. Is it 50?
50. And
the Constitution.
Just to correct, the Constitution doesn't say it's parliamentary.
What does Constitution say?
It's an omnibus provision.
What is the title of that?
So it says representation of the people.
And then what is the subheading of what you are reading?
Yeah, so if you go to the side note, it says election of candidates.
It doesn't
say parliamentary or presidential.
So read it again. That same 50 thing.
Yeah, the 50. So the applicable one, if you read it from the top, you will have to read a lot of things. But the applicable one is clause.
No, but sometimes you need to read a bit from the top so you know whether it's referring to presidential or parliamentary, right?
Okay.
Because if the subject will be, the hint will be from the beginning. So read a few of the 2 or 3.
Let me read it to satisfy you. Clause 1 says, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, where at the close of nominations and on the date before a public election, A, 2 or more candidates have been nominated, the election shall be held, and the candidate who receives the largest number of votes cast shall be declared elected. Or B, only one candidate is nominated, there shall be no election, and that candidate shall be declared elected.
Okay.
Now, Clause 2 says, where for the purposes of a public election, 2 or more candidates are nominated, but at the close of the nominations and on the day before the election, only one candidate stands nominated, a further period of 10 days shall be allowed for nomination of other candidates, and it shall not be lawful for any person nominated within that period of 10 days to withdraw his nomination.
Fair enough.
3 says, where at the close of nominations under clause 2 of this article, only one candidate stands nominated, there shall be no election, and that candidate shall be declared elected. And 4, which I contend is relevant for our purpose, says, where at the close of nominations, but before the election one of the candidates dies, a further period of 10 days shall be allowed for nominations. And where the death occurs at any time within 25 days before the election in that constituency or unit shall be postponed for 21
now,
days.
Go back to the place on how the person wins. You read something earlier. Just now on how you said the person who wins the most votes is declared a winner.
Yes.
Good. Now, the reason I insist this is parliamentary is that to win a presidential election, there's a different rule.
Yeah, so you see...
So hold on. Okay. I'm also trying to learn law.
Okay.
I'm saying that you've read about 4 paragraphs.
Yes.
And the paragraph doesn't make reference to presidential or parliamentary.
Yes,
but I'm saying that the provision, in my view, is parliamentary because the determination of the winner is a simple majority of which a parliamentary election holds. To win a presidential election, you need a certain specific provision.
Bernard, so you see, that's why I told you that if you read the specific provisions dealing with the presidency, there is no wording of the constitution that cures the mischief we're talking about. So you remember I used the phrase mutatis mutandis with the necessary modifications. Now that is to say that while there appears to be a lacuna, unless of course somebody draws my attention to an express provision dealing with the subject matter, I've used all the tools I use for legal research and I don't find that in the constitution. Now, once there's that lacuna and we agree that there appears to be that lacuna, this provision that I read to you, 50, doesn't tell you that it is parliamentary elections or it is assembly.
But I'm saying
elections,
I agree
because it uses constituency and unit.
Yeah, but I'm saying that again. The reason why I tilt towards parliamentary exclusively is because you also know that to win a presidential election, there is a different modus of determining the winner by way of votes.
That's true.
And I'm saying that this thing that you just read applies purely to parliamentary. Because if this were true, if this were omnibus, then it also applies to presidential.
No, you see, you can have general provisions and then also specific provisions in the constitution, which happens. Now, when it comes to specific matters and the constitution specifically provides for that, then you rely on the specific provision to deal with the situation. But where the matter is at large, it is general.
Okay. So you're saying that to declare a presidential person, so you declare a presidential candidate winner is a specific provision.
Yeah, that's a
so the general provision for winning elections is what was read.
Yeah, that's right.
But so this could even apply to district level elections.
Yeah, that's right.
I
because it says
so it's
unit,
but then they then made the presidency special.
Exactly.
So it does not mean that all of this is parliamentary.
Exactly.
No problem.
Let's stay
with that. Let's stay with that thought. I wanted you to check Article 47 because I thought Article 47 defined a constituency.
Yeah.
And because the second leg of your argument or your reasoning was that. Since there is one returning officer for the presidential election, and that returning officer returns for the nation as a constituency, the use of a constituency does not limit an election to parliamentary. So why then do they define constituency separately in 47? Well, and in that definition, there is no contemplation of the whole nation.
Yes, which you are right with that assessment. But so let me read the provision as you asked. So Article 47, 1 says, Ghana shall be divided into as many constituencies for the purpose of electing or election of members of parliament, as the Electoral Commission may prescribe. And each constituency shall be represented by one member of parliament. 2 says, no constituency shall fall within more than one region.
Good.
3, the boundaries of each constituency shall be such that the number of inhabitants in the constituency is, as nearly as possible, equal to the population quota. 4, for the purposes of Clause 3 of this article, the number of inhabitants of a constituency may be greater or less than the population quota in order to take account of means of communication, geographical features, density of population and area, and boundaries of the regions and other administrative or traditional areas. 5.
So you see how specific a constituency is in terms of you can't fall in more than one region.
Yeah.
So how on earth can the country be seen as a constituency?
No, let me just finish.
Continue.
I'll deal with your
You
matter.
deal with that.
5 says,
Uh-huh.
the Electoral Commission shall review the division of Ghana into constituencies at intervals of not less than 7 years, or within 12 months after the publication of the enumeration figures, or the census figures, after the holding of a census of the population of Ghana, whichever is earlier, and may, as a result, alter the constituencies. It may. Now, 6 says, where the boundaries of a constituency established under this article are altered as a result of a review, the alteration shall come into effect upon the next dissolution of Parliament. It's all on my mind. Now, 7 says, for the purposes of this article, quote and unquote, population quota means the number obtained by dividing the number of inhabitants of Ghana by the number of constituencies into which Ghana is divided under this article. Now, so you note that there is a specific provision dealing with how Ghanaians are represented in Parliament for purposes of electing members of Parliament.
Wonderful.
And I have said that by practice, I'm not so sure about a legal provision that deals with the matter. By practice, for purposes of presidential elections, Ghana is deemed as one constituency, which in effect means that if you vote in Nankpanduri or you vote in what you call
We'll still add your votes.
Exactly, we'll still add your votes for purposes of determining who is elected president of the republic. The law, in my respectful view, as I understand it, does not provide for that matter specifically, except it says that there shall be election to determine president, blah, blah, blah. But when you come to these cascading matters, the very fine details you're talking about, that provision
Are more specific for
exactly
electing MPs.
Yes, or for purposes of
because when they were describing
constituency and
this,
all
they were
that.
talking
Yes.
about for choosing MPs.
Yes. Yeah.
So we'll pause there and come back. This is very interesting because, in a sense, you're saying for presidential election, there are some specific provisions, for example, around how to determine a winner.
Yes.
Yet the Constitution failed to contemplate a specific provision for when a
somebody
presidential candidate dies. It just uses the word candidate as a general provision. Now, I don't know if they did not realize that the stakes for a presidential election are much higher, so that the process of a party nominating a parliamentary candidate to replace a dead parliamentary candidate may not be the same as the process for a presidential. So, for example, the time limits they gave, the 10 days and all those, postponed the election. What I'm trying to say is that you can have a by-election, and therefore, if you say there's a parliamentary election on December 7, you can say because the candidate dies, they can postpone it for 10 days and it won't cause the world to stop.
No, but
a presidential election is a very different matter.
Yeah, but Bernard, what you don't recognize is that in the same constitution, where there's a tie or there's no clear winner, 50% plus one,
There's a runoff.
There's a runoff. The constitution says that it shall be held within 25 days, if my memory serves me correctly.
But when you go to the
21
CI that
days.
gave you the, I still get why. When you go to the CI that says, for example, in selecting December 7 as our voting day,
Yeah.
did the CI specifically say December 7 or nothing else?
The CI.
Because I'm saying, is December 7 a convention or by law? Is December 7 by consensus?
No, so it's by calculation. The language of the it talks about certain specific intervals.
So that's what I'm saying. So if you are going to postpone a national election, as an example, so I'm saying that if we are to go by the omnibus provision and say it can apply to both, the omnibus provision says if the person dies within 25 days of the election, he must be replaced and the election postponed, right? And I'm saying that has implications for because if that is true, then the CI or the method of calculating the presidential election date for which we arrive at December 7 should also contemplate the possibility of a postponement.
You see,
Please, I want to accept my logic.
No, I understand what you're saying.
You're my logic.
Yes, I understand. What I'm saying is that, you see, the Constitution itself acknowledges that there will be times where, for instance, we may not be able to hold an election to elect a president. So then there are processes in place to deal with that mischief.
So how did the Constitution contemplate that somebody could die?
No, you can't contemplate everything.
And
it can't be
there are
written.
only two certainties in life: death and taxes.
Okay, hold on.
So if the Constitution cannot contemplate, and the Constitution contemplated death of a parliamentary of a somebody.
Yes.
So I'm saying that this I'm not even arguing with you. I'm saying that if the constitution makes reference to death of a candidate,
Yes.
we can safely assume it applies to both presidential and parliamentary.
Yeah, that's what I have said.
Okay.
That's on if you read all the provisions together, a reasonable deduction is that provision, in my respectful view,
So if the person had died 25 days to an election, would have postponed the December 7 election.
most likely, in my
But this
my
incident
interpretation
has
holds.
occurred
No, I know.
outside
Yeah, I
my
get it.
understanding
I'm
of it.
asking hypothetical. So
But let
yes.
me ask you a question.
Yes.
And this matter came up when I was in constitutional law class with the respected Justice of the Court of Appeal, Yawapong.
Okay.
The issue was, on the day of election,
Yeah.
elections are going on.
Yeah.
Vice presidential candidate, they all are alive.
Uh-huh.
Somewhere towards the midday,
Touch wood.
knock on wood, the presidential candidate dies.
Mm.
What happens in that case? Now, yes.
Wow.
So it is a novel matter. You see, the constitution can't contemplate everything. Now, in that particular, my argument in class was that it will be deemed, as I argued here, that the vice president is elected on his own steam. So while the presidential candidate may have died, the vice president, having been elected vice president-elect of the republic, then takes office as vice president, first of all, right? And then the constitutional processes are engaged to elevate him to president of the republic. Then the procedure laid down in the constitution to name a vice president
Then kicks in.
That is on the assumption that this particular person, the deceased party,
Died on the day. Yeah,
on the day.
A
Okay.
day.
So then you're saying that based on that, then if what you're saying is that the constitution couldn't contemplate such a wild scenario, then this scenario of Akua Donkor is not even that complicated.
On the face of it.
On the
It's not that
face, yes.
complicated. So hold on, let's move over. So basically, what you're saying is that the constitution in Article 50 tells us what to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
GFP must give
They
the
have-
notice to the EC,
Yes.
and then submit a new name in 10 days. Once they do, and don't forget that 10 days still gives us 30 days to elections. Because we are 40 days.
still outside.
So they're still outside the 25 days. So we get a name in 10 days. All the EC needs to do is to replace the Akua Donkor's name with the person they've duly submitted.
Yeah.
And obviously they'll add a running mate too.
Now, the other question that emerges, which is why it might seem not complicated by complicated, is do we need to go and do reballoting to determine the order in which the candidates appear?
But the balloting was for parties,
Per party,
not for people.
not for
It was for parties.
Yeah, that's true.
So the party is already there.
That's true.
Yeah.
But you see, it
That's
is
why
your way
Mahama
of-
didn't go, but Manibu went.
That's true. But it is your way of looking at it.
Maumia was not there.
I'm
The
with
party representative went to ballot for the party slot.
Forward on behalf of the
Yes.
party and the presidential
So the party
has taken his place.
has
already.
taken.
has
That's why
taken
the
its place.
party's
It's an
image
individual
also
you are-
in
you are
alignment with
changing.
it. So I think that
Yes,
is a really
yes.
secondary issue more. The more important issue is, I think the more important question we face is
So
if
if
Akua
they do
Donkor's
not
party
replace
is
it,
yes,
yeah.
I think that's the most important. If Akua Donkor's party is not able to replace her,
Then-
what happens?
Yes.
That's actually the issue, because if they replace her, they will just have to put her name, the name of the person as
Yes,
number
yes,
3.
That's all.
If they don't replace her, then that
what
then means that
happens?
that number
Space.
3 slot must go. Or they have to find somebody to, so they may have to recap.
Is
So I
it
think that's
okay to put black spot there to occupy the, so that all other candidates will maintain their respective, or parties will maintain their respective positions?
so. I think we are preempting a lot of things.
Yeah.
What we need to, therefore, I'm even asking that, does the party even have, who is the general secretary of the party? Godfrey, come.
the party has-
You used to be my.
I think these are difficult questions.
The party has a
I'm
just-
sensitive.
No, you don't have to do that. When didn't Mills die in Ghana?
Yes,
Didn't the country move on?
Yes,
So what are you saying? Didn't you even announce his death, bro? You are the former head of politics.
Yeah.
Where is Akua Donkor's?
The party is headquartered in the eastern region.
In which town?
Kabu, it's called Kabu also.
Who is the general secretary of GFP?
His name is.
We're going to need to call them to ask what their constitution also says. Because some of this is also constitutional, right? Because
Yes.
the EC will work
Oh,
with your
yes.
constitution.
I
Some parties,
think-
which is why in
I
the
think
Mills
that-
case, you remember you said NDC decided to affirm Mahama.
Mahama, yes.
And so long as the general secretary and the chairman write to the EC to say that this
Then it-
person
yes,
satisfies our
that's as good
process,
as
the
done.
EC agrees.
Yes.
So I think that the missing link here is the general secretary
Yes,
of the
that's-
GFP to come and tell us what their party's provision says. Do they even have a constitution?
Well, the
Yes,
the first
the
requirement
is a constitution.
for getting certification from the EC.
So the EC would have GFP's constitution.
Yes.
Hopefully.
So that they will say that having
They should.
satisfied the provision of the constitution, the person is duly elected as flag bearer of this party.
Yeah,
So,
but we should also be address our minds to Article 55, which says that as much as possible, your internal organization.
Fair enough.
should
So,
align
so
with the
Fred,
party credentials.
find the GFP general secretary for us, because this confusion will be solved from their side. On the EC side, you're saying it's Article 50.
Yeah, in my respectful.
10 days to choose a new person. And then replace. So you haven't come to the point of postponing election yet, because this
we are
person
still outside
in the 25.
the set 25
All right.
day window.
Do you know the GFP's general secretary?
No, please.
Their chairman?
I know Roman Father,
Who is Roman Father?
the running mate. He works at Atinka FM.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
a
yeah.
journalist?
Yeah, he's a DJ. He's a very good guy.
So why do you call Roman Father?
Oh,
I thought it was a Catholic priest.
Oh no.
Initially, that's what I thought.
Oh, so Akua Donkor's running mate is a journalist.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, let's find him and put him on the line.
Yeah.
Or he's mourning.
Could be, but we'll find him.
But some lawyers are contacting me, and I'm
What are
happy
they
what
saying?
I'm hearing. Somebody says, okay, Bernard, Sky is advancing a provision which is not explicitly stated in the Constitution.
That's true.
It is a contrived position. Bernard, your position can equally hold. Nothing bars the vice presidential candidate from taking up the presidential position and then nominating a vice presidential
Yes.
candidate. Presidential elections are specifically provided for under Chapter 8, while parliamentary are under Chapter 7. Parliamentary elections cannot work in the same way as presidential elections.
That's true.
In presidential elections, there's a vice who can always stand in for the president, but for the parliamentary, there's none. You see why I keep saying that? You see, if I were on a panel, I would disagree with you, because I'm saying that. Two things. This provision, it talks about how to declare a winner, and that's parliamentary. Number two, a parliamentary candidate doesn't have a running mate.
Yes.
Which is why when he dies,
You
you need
replace
to
him.
replace him and postpone the election. A president. My argument is that the reason we go through the whole process of choosing a running mate is to forestall certain things. He's a running mate to the candidate and the eventual vice president to the president.
Was he?
Wait,
Okay.
I'm coming. Now he must satisfy,
All the requirements of president.
which is why when you go to EC to say you are running as Nathan Kwao and you say Godfred Odum is your running mate, they will make sure that Godfred Odum satisfies certain provisions.
That's true.
So he must qualify to be your running mate.
That's true.
My argument is that qualification to be a running mate contemplates that, touch wood a million times. If the candidate
Can't-
dies,
Yes, he can't step in.
he should, because he's performing two roles. His first role is running mate to you. His second role is, in the case you win, vice president to the country. So and I say vice president is more serious than running mate. So if the candidate is dead, the common sense view should be put a running mate on the ballot.
You see,
Simple.
No, Bernard. You see,
Yeah,
I
we
don't
shouldn't make our life complex with all these things.
Oh, hold on, Bernard. You see, I don't
Simple.
disagree with that view. Except I'm saying that don't assume that because the people of a particular party
Yes.
voted for Kwame AB
Yes.
as presidential candidate,
Yeah.
and then he goes to tell them that, oh, my choice of running mate is Kofi Owusu,
Which he
Right.
did with the party's consent.
endorsement, right?
Yes.
With his
Which
endorsement.
the
means
EC, but don't forget, some people couldn't get running mates because the EC said they couldn't get there. If you can't choose a running mate for the EC, the running mate must satisfy certain conditions.
I understand that. What I'm trying to say is that
Yeah.
means by reason of that introduction to the party and the party endorsing,
Yes.
means that the party people want that person in the event of a particular event happening,
Yes.
unfortunate as it may be,
Yes.
becoming presidential
Yes.
candidate. You see,
I
hold
insist.
on.
Do you know I insist?
No, hold on. Let me finish.
It is, no, you finish. It is implicit. It
No,
is implicit.
hold on,
It is
Bernard.
implicit.
Hold on. The reason
Let's
is that
listen.
the
It is
reason is
implicit.
that
Yes.
that is why you go to the party. In my reading of the provision,
Yeah.
I use the phrase, and let me repeat, mutatis mutandis, with the necessary modification.
We shall not be intimidated by that word.
No, I'm not intimidating you.
We don't care.
Yes, with
Go
the
ahead.
necessary modifications as to apply to a presidential candidate situation.
Yes.
So that you go to the party,
Yeah.
that this is the unfortunate situation we have. Well, we have a vice presidential candidate in the person of A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Is it the will of the party, as the NDC did in
Yeah.
2012, to elevate that person to become presidential candidate of the party?
Yeah.
Once the party people agree to it, and it conforms to democratic practices,
My difference
fine.
from you
But
is
what
that
you
in the
should not do
NDC,
is to do a typical democratic.
No, in the NDC case,
Uh-huh.
they had not filed the name of Mills. to
Yeah, I
the
explained
EC.
that. Yes, I explained that.
Good. And I'm saying that if the people have chosen a running mate who, if the president dies, automatically becomes president
Yes.
after being sworn in
Yes.
Yes,
by
going
the
through all
parliament,
process.
president is more serious than candidate. Because president is one selected out of 13. Candidate is one he may not even win. So if for the high office of president, when the president dies, the vice president is sworn in, why can't the running mate of a candidate duly filed with the EC? That's why you don't. Okay, you can tell if the vice president didn't have any role in the election, the EC wouldn't have to receive the name before they accept your nomination. So the EC should be able to say, in the event that you die, you will be replaced by your vice president, and then you provide a separate vice president.
You see,
because if you can replace me as president, you should be able to replace me as flag bearer.
So Bernard, it is fair you make that argument.
Yeah.
But you see, the EC cannot by word of mouth say that. If they want to do that, and there's some constitutional authority for that,
they should do it, and you can challenge them.
Hold on. They should go through the proper processes, including passing a CI.
The process is not clear. So what they should do is to interpret the law, and then somebody can challenge it.
Hold on, Bernard. You see, by your logic,
yes.
What you are saying is that because the vice president and the president win the election, and because the president dies, unfortunately, then the vice president should automatically become president.
That's what the law says.
Hold on, no, that's not what he says.
What does he say?
Hold on. Before you become president in that situation, there are processes laid down in the constitution.
I'm saying that.
That's why I'm saying that
the process is not in contention.
Yes.
Swearing in, again, when Mills died, it was less than a day.
Yes.
Parliament was called.
Yes.
They went, read the constitutional provision. The speaker read what was supposed to have been read. Mahama took the oath.
Yes.
And then he assumed. So the automaticity. Yes. So, but I'm saying that there was no contention on the legal thing to do. And I'm saying that all the EC needs to do.
Do you know why? In my respectful view, the reason the framers created that superstructure is to ensure that, yes, the intention of the voter is clear. We are voting for Nana Akua Donkor as president of the republic, and we are voting for Dr. Baumia
as his running mate,
as his vice president.
His running mate.
And those positions are distinct. They are different. They are different roles that the two of them play.
But those roles are linked. They are different. Saying, we know the president and vice president are the same, but the reason, the vice president's job is to be there when the president is not there.
Yes.
So it is performing a function. The function is that if the man is not there, you replace.
Yes.
So if the man is not there, perform your function by replacing. So why do you need to say that they voted him on his own right?
It is so because you see. Let me tell you why. You see the Akua situation. Akua, in any hopeless democracy, Gerolins could have easily fired, Kensaka because they disagreed with each other, and he was on the other progressive alliance or whatever alliance it was. You understand? And then he was reportedly feeding information to the opposition. He could have fired him. But because he is elected clearly by the people of Ghana, that look, we are electing you as together with this man. But your job is vice president.
Good.
You do as he says you should do and as the constitution provides for.
Yes.
So that in special circumstances arising, you assume the role subject to you having fulfilled the constitutional obligation. So in the case of Mahama, if Mahama had just assumed that he was president of the republic, that would not have happened.
You see, what I'm saying is that...
I'm just trying to give you the principle. So the same principle apply. If you distill the principle from that, you apply the same principle to the situation with the unfortunate death of Akua Donkor. They are two distinct individuals.
Yeah, but
let me finish.
You are not. You see, you are not getting is that we don't disagree that something has to be done before he assumes the position.
Then we agree on.
But hold on. You see, in the Mahama case, there were two issues. To assume position as president had nothing to do with NDC anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
To assume the position of flag bearer was an NDC issue.
Yes, that's true.
Good. So I'm saying that there are two issues. When the person leaves the position, to assume the position to replace them, there's a role for the EC and there's a role for the party. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So when they were swearing Mahama as president, they didn't ask NDC's permission.
No, they didn't need to.
Because he was a sitting vice president
of the republic. Yes.
Good. And I'm saying that now you have an Akua Donkor departure. Good. The EC in this view is the higher power, and the party is the second extreme. So in replacing Akua Donkor as the flag bearer, I think the EC must kick in the process.
No, it is not on the say-so of the Electoral Commission. That's the point I'm making. Because if it was the say-so of the Electoral Commission, then the EC can today say that, look, in the circumstances I am elevating so. For all you know, the people who voted for Akua Donkor did not intend to have, what's the name of the guy, the gentleman, with all respect to him, what's his name?
He's called teacher, something.
Yeah, for all you know, they want some other person to be presidential candidate. That's the point I'm making. So you need to go back to the college and ask them.
No, but I'm saying that the function of a running mate is not. You see, we are splitting hairs here. A running mate provision for an election, in my view, is contemplating the absence of the candidate. That is why. So this is how I'm arguing. And listen to my flow. President dies, vice takes over. Yes. There are two authorities: the state through parliament, the party. When the president dies, the state takes over, swears in the and so the state is the higher power. The party is the mitigating force. I'm saying, bring that logic into running mate and candidate. You filed with the EC. So in this case, EC is state. Candidate dies. Running mate takes over.
How?
Simple. Because the filing, you see, your filing of the two names there is an implicit promise to the EC that if this man is not there, this man replaces them.
You may defeat the intention of the.
So are you saying that? So
which electorate?
The electorate, the GC, what's the name?
The Ghana Freedom Party.
Yes, the Ghana Freedom Party electorate.
But the Ghana Freedom Party elected, or a party elects their flag bearer.
Yes.
No party elects their running mate.
No, they do.
No party elects a running mate.
Not in the sense of electing.
But they approve.
But the process is.
That's my point. So that approval is material to the death of the candidate.
That is why.
So listen to my logical. You have chosen a candidate.
Yes.
And you are giving some of your power to choose the running mate to this person.
Yes.
And when the person chooses, you ratify.
Yes.
So I'm saying, in choosing Akua Donkor, you have endorsed her choice of her running mate.
Yes.
You do not disagree with it.
Yes, that's true.
The function of a running mate is to replace a candidate when he's not there. Just like the function of a vice president is to replace when he's not there. So by my logic, once the candidate dies, let the vice president the running mate automatically assume the candidature, and then let the party just basically affirm it.
Okay, but then you are coming back
but it's not the
point.
same. You see, there's a difference between.
In which case?
Hold on. There's a between. I'm saying that there must be, because of time, there must be an automatic ascension with an affirmation, not a new process of the party saying we are going to. That's my point. So let the party say we object. But if the party is not going to, so what I am saying, that what I will say is that let the EC say, and of course EC are better lawyers than me. I'm just giving my common sense. The teacher, what's his name, Pastor
Roman
Father,
which is a nickname by the way,
comfortably becomes a candidate. Then EC will say, GFP, do you have anybody
you want to?
GFP will write and say, we affirm the decision and we are even supplying Caleb Kuda as the running mate. then we move. You see, but let's not tell GFP we are giving you 10 days to supply and they say we have Congress. No.
So you see, if we read all the provisions together, in my respectful view, that's where we come to.
Yes.
Because, as I have said, the intention of the DFP electorate is to elect Akua Donkor presidential candidate.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That intention should not be defeated by supplanting Akua Donkor with some other person on the basis of
she has expired.
Yes, she's
and
expired.
the reason why
go back and ask them.
No, we won't go back.
All you know,
we won't go back. Every action has a consequence. We won't go back because when you chose her and you affirmed her running mate candidate, you implicitly agree that if she's not there, this guy will replace her.
To a limited extent.
No,
to a limited extent.
No. So you don't choose running mate on the basis of, you see, which is why you must think carefully before you choose a partner in anything you do. Don't get up and say I'm choosing it. No. If you are choosing a partner, this partner can replace you. This running mate is your partner in the election.
Yeah, to a limited extent.
To a very great extent. It's not to a limited extent.
To a limited extent, because that same person does not automatically take over the mantle of running mate if the person that person is vice to decides not to contest an election. That person will still have to contest and be voted for by the party's Congress.
Dead men don't talk. So it's different. If the person is alive, it's different.
But that is not.
You see, death is what. You see, I'll tell you something. Like a will. There are certain things that when you die, it kicks in and you have no choice. Okay. If you say you are withdrawing from the race, you came with the person and you are corpus mentis, as they call it, and you say you won't run again. So you can't say the person replaces you because you yourself are not there to defend you can understand. But the person has died. So the person's last decision was that she was a running candidate of GF. No. So the person dead she hasn't changed her mind. It was only death that took her. So you cannot then say that if the person was alive and said I won't run again, the running mate doesn't take over. But the person's last decision to the EC was that I'm the candidate. But as fate to have it, she's no longer there. But her last decision was to choose this man as a running mate. So what do? The man she chose as a running mate replaces her in the place of her death. So
two things, if you allow me. Bernard, hold on. Two things.
What about this? Don't you understand?
Hold on.
Let's listen to Godfrey's argument.
Two things on this particular one. It's quite clear that our constitution needs help. That much is clear, which is why the delay of the constitutional review. Because you see, as our democracy becomes more sophisticated, we are starting to realize how inadequate portions of our constitution is. And so it becomes important that certain details like this, because, and also the thing is this, most constitutions generally, I think, deal with the matter of running of vice presidents post-elections and their succession. But I haven't seen one that deals with
a situation like
this.
This
is a pretty unique situation.
No, ours is modeled around the US practice too, which is before you file, you have a running mate.
No, you don't get it. I'm talking about
the passing of
a vice presidential candidate. In
the passing
of the main candidate and who takes over and the succession line that this one undertakes. Now, the reason why we are saying it has to go back to the party, perhaps also, is don't forget that in our electoral setup, the selection process undertakes several things. The considerations include regional considerations, ethnic considerations, right? So the considerations that might have led to the selection of Dennis Roman Fada, for instance, as a running mate, will not be the same consideration for him to become flag bearer, because something switches in that regard.
That's not EC's problem to solve.
No, but you see,
those things are just conventions and their own calculations for politics. Constitutionally, you are the person replacing the person. Whether you are looking at north-south voter, it's not our problem.
But here's the thing: the decision ultimately does not belong to the EC; it belongs to the party.
It belongs to the state. True.
It belongs to the party. You see, okay, so the party can make a decision then that we are withdrawing from the election. Is it the EC that is going to say we are withdrawing you from the election? The EC cannot by itself
I agree
say that.
I agree. I'm just saying.
Hold on. The Ghana Freedom Party could say that they are in the election. Or they could issue a statement tomorrow and say we are withdrawing from the election. The EC cannot force the Ghana Freedom Party to remain on the ballot.
No problem. But I'm also saying that I agree with you there. But I'm saying that some of the things that we've put in our constitution are there to guide a certain process.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, the party can choose, but I am saying that in choosing their running mate, that running mate concept, in my respective view, is a contemplation of a replacement.
Of continuity.
Yes,
I understand.
We put it there not for fun. We put it there because we know that it's possible people can die.
So we wait.
And if the person dies, we should be able to continue. Because if this happened a day to the election, what we do? You see, and in everything you are applying, you must also look at the circumstances. You see, the law doesn't. The man was not made for the law. The law was made for man. The law was made to help man. So if you approach the law from this perspective of finching what the law has said, we may all just die.
Because the certainty of the law.
But you see, the law. There's an evolution of how. Look, if we all exercise our common sense, we don't even need law. Right? If we all exercise common sense and kindness and use the law is there to basically restrain the business instincts of man.
Let me ask you a question.
So I am saying that if it wasn't for political abro, this wouldn't have even an issue.
Yes.
So the reason why people are asked to add a running mate to the ticket is because we need a vice president, but also because we know that it is possible for the guy to die.
Let me ask you two questions in this matter, since you've decided to stretch this, and then I'll get to the EC and why
lawyers are sending me, so read it for them.
I have issues.
Yes.
So, what if Akua Donkor had been what we call an independent candidate, not linked to a political party that is supposed to have a certain structure. And she says that, and you know, that person passes away, automatically the running mate becomes the independent candidate.
In the things,
Pair your argument.
in the things Kai read, there's clearly a provision for independent candidate. What they said was that, and I'll give you the reason. This is my argument. For if the person had died 25 days or less before an election,
This is an independent candidate.
Remember, if the person dies before an election 25 days and the person was not independent, they would have had to postpone the election and replace the person.
Okay.
But if the person is an independent candidate, there'll be no postponement and there'll be no replacement.
So the running mate, will the running mate have the opportunity to say, I am now putting myself up as an independent candidate? What would the process be for that person to replace the so-called
your point is
independent
that
candidate?
because the constitution, okay, I think I get your point.
You know why?
I'm coming. I think I get his point. So independent candidate has no structure.
Yes.
So an independent candidate comes on his own.
Yes. With a running mate.
Thank you.
And passes away during that same
So
period.
the independent candidate will not be replaced.
But can the running mate, would the EC then say running mate of the independent candidate go and run
I think you have won the argument.
because the continuity
I think you have won
is
the
there.
argument. So the independent candidate being treated differently tells you that there's a role for the party.
That's why I told you that you can't just override the intention of the electorate. They may well have decided that Akua Donkor should be their presidential candidate,
Very good.
but not so that even when she does, you go back to them and ask them.
Now, point two.
I think I agree
Now,
with you.
point two. On the matter of the quality of our elections and why I think that the Electoral Commission has been very negligent in its role as the supervisor of our elections. It's true. And no, it's not the first time that I've said this.
Go ahead.
I keep making this point. You see, the quality of our elections is not just in the declaration of elections. It's not just in the sophistication of the gadgets, but it's also in the supervision of the entities and the individuals who constitute the electoral process.
Thank you.
Our Electoral Commission has supervised over the past decade or so a process where all kinds of institutions are allowed into the electoral process as parties. Here we are. We've been running elections. You, Richard Sky, you've covered elections more than anybody else in this, as well as Bernard Avle. You are struggling to name the General Secretary and Chairman of the GFP as we sit
That's
here.
my negligence.
It's not your negligence.
If I was a serious journalist, I would have gone to get the number.
Where was the last time they organized the Congress?
That's a good question.
What issues do they address? What do they stand for?
Farmers and women.
No, you see,
That's what she said.
the EC has a very strict checkbox for what a party can be and what a party should be. For most of those situations, the EC tends to close its eyes to the rest. That is why we don't talk about funding of the political parties. We don't do anything to the political parties most of the time. Other than that, generally speaking, to be honest with you, a party like the GFP should not exist as a party, but Madam Akua Donkor would have contested simply as an independent candidate. There is nothing wrong with that. But for the structure, and you see, it's the same thing
So
we
the
do.
problem we are in today
Is because of the negligence of the Electoral Commission. You see,
people who don't have proper parties have been given instead of going independent.
we pretend that those parties are so-called proper smaller parties
They are not political
to
parties.
fit the checkbox of our democracy has smaller parties in it, which is a requirement for a good democracy. So we have all these small parties who, the last time you put when the Daily Graphic News team, the editorial team, did the analysis of the presence of the parties, you have so-called smaller parties who are unable to put up, some of them even 12 candidates nationally
Some have 4
to contest elections. But here we are having a debate. We spent 2 hours discussing the succession of some of these parties. So we are at this point simply because the Electoral Commission has refused to do its job properly.
Wow.
If the EC had done its job and protect the democracy the way it's supposed to be protected, the GFPs, the LPGs of this era, and all those other smaller parties, I'm not saying they should not exist, but will be held to a certain standard.
And to think that PNC doesn't have a presidential candidate on the ballot.
On the ballot.
And PNC has been there
it's more
at least
present
since 92.
If you and I went to...
And they have more parliamentary candidates than all the rest. They have 31.
No, it's not even just that. They actually have offices.
Yeah, PNC have offices.
If you and I took a trip...
Ababana Junction.
You and I took a random trip to middle belt of Ghana today and asked for a PNC office.
Okay.
We will find one. You see, So the Electoral Commission, like I'm saying, has struggled
Let me talk to Justin.
to hold on. Let me just wrap up on this matter. If it does not fix this problem for us, they will keep on creating these kinds of problems as our democracy grows. So this is on the EC. I'm looking at the EC for this constitutional crisis that we find ourselves in on this particular matter.
Now let's see whether it's a crisis yet, because initially my view was that the running mate for Akua Donkor should automatically replace her. But upon your argument and listening closer to Sky, I have yielded, because I think the independent candidate point defeats the logic of my flow. But let me talk to Justice Sai, a lawyer, to see where he stands on this. Justice Sai, thanks for joining us. So I don't even know how to ask the first question, sir, because what should happen next? Akua Donkor unfortunately has died. We have 40 days to an election. We don't see any explicit provision in the Constitution about what should happen when a presidential candidate dies 40 days to an election. So what should the EC do? What should the GFP do?
Oh, okay. So, good morning to your listeners. There are regulations on this. You may find it in the CI 127. And this is what the regulation, spells out. When a candidate dies, there's a distinction between an independent candidate and then a political party's candidate. So when a candidate dies, the regulation says that in respect of a political party, the EC would have to open nominations for 10 days for a new person to be, nominated in respect of that candidate. However, if it's an independent candidate, there will not be any such opening of nomination, and the process will proceed in that order. Now, the next question is, how does the political party fill the dead person's candidature? That will be determined by the constitution of the political party. Some may by consensus just take someone and approve based on their internal party structures to replace the candidate. But that candidate himself would have to secure his own, those who nominate them. You have to go around and get those things done. Because the Constitution spells out what a candidate needs to do to be able to contest. And that is not necessarily a question of political party. So my view is that you cannot use the persons who nominated the deceased person, the deceased candidate, to be this. You cannot adopt the deceased candidate's nomination documentation for the new nominee. That new nominee ought to also go and secure their particulars of nomination. And that is why I believe the Constitution, the regulation allows the EC to suspend, to open nomination for 10 more days for the person to be nominated for political parties. But for independent candidates, there's no such. In fact, the rule said that there will not be any. It says that the election will continue as though nothing had happened.
So which means that for you, both the CI 127 and Article 50 are referring to both presidential and parliamentary elections, because the language uses things like constituency, right? So in reading that on the first reading, you are like, well, if you talk of constituency, you are referring to a parliamentary candidate, right? There's no explicit mention of a presidential constituency. But you are saying that CI and the 51 are applicable to both a presidential candidate and a parliamentary candidate. Is that how I should say what you're saying?
Yes, so the CI 127, when you look at its scope of applicability, it says that the regulations apply to both the presidential and the parliamentary elections, and as the case may be. So the understanding from that is that the rules in the CI 47, which is what CI 127, which is what I'm referring to as providing for this situation, would apply to both the presidential and the parliamentary.
Wow. So the logical thing is for the GFP to nominate a candidate and submit that to the EC in 10 days.
Yes, that is what
Good.
the rules are. But then the 10 days start counting when the EC has been formally notified of the death of the candidate.
So the EC cannot assume they know the person has died until the GFP tells the EC.
Yeah, there's a formal way of notifying the EC, and that must be done first.
Okay. Now, second leg, if the 10 days or if the death is known to the EC 25 days to an election or less, that means that the EC has to postpone the election.
Yeah, that's what the regulation actually stipulates, that when it happens that way, the election should be postponed it should be extended for another, I think, 21 days or so for that to happen. And I think the theory behind this is that, the Constitution as well as our laws promote multi-party, democracy. So we do not want a situation where death or things of that nature or withdrawal of candidature would lead to one person contesting. So if you read the regulation thoroughly and even the Constitution, you would see that whenever there is a withdrawal or whenever there is death, the rule suggests that enough opportunity should be given for a candidate to replace the person who has died, so that we'll continue to have the multi-party, the multi-choice system of voting.
So a lot depends on what GFP does. If for some strange reason GFP doesn't communicate to the EC that their flag bearer is passed, EC could also just sit and wait. And then if we realize eventually that, okay, I mean, this is funny because justice, if can the EC not say that we've heard in the news that your candidate is dead, so come and confirm if he's dead or not? Because the EC cannot just sit down and wait, right?
Yeah, the regulation says that the EC does not specify who should do the notification. So in the absence of specification as to who should notify the EC, I believe there are other people or the other sources that can confirm to the EC. But the point I was trying to make is that the 10 days start counting when the EC has formal notification of the death. And in fact, generally in matters of law and death, even if you hear that someone has died, sometimes you still be required to prove that the person has died, and that is done by a certificate of death or another form of evidence of death. So whichever way, the EC will get to know, I believe, eventually. And of course, the political party will not, I doubt if a political party would just be there and not say anything about what is going on.
Okay.
They will definitely take steps.
Now, Justice, now you've answered the legal, you've answered the legal question of what should be done. Now, let me be hypothetical. Okay, now, so this is a hypothetical question. So, assuming GFP is unable to nominate a candidate between now and say 2 weeks' time, can what needs to happen? Because if you cannot have a ballot with a dead person, right? So now you are saying that we don't need, somebody can notify EC. So maybe Benadable can even write to the EC and say, I know that this person is dead or whatever because of an interview. So the EC knows. Now, if the EC knows the person is died and the party doesn't take steps to replace the person, what should the EC do? Should the EC then say, I'm going to reprint ballot boxes to take her name out? Do you understand me? Because there are 14 people on the ballot and she's number 3. Now, she cannot be on that ballot because if we vote, she's not alive. You can't vote for a dead person.
Yeah.
So, this is a hypothetical question. If the party doesn't take steps to properly replace her, what should the EC do? Or should the EC be left with?
Well, if I were to, like I said, in this particular hypothetical situation you stated, there's very little law on that. But I believe that administrative processes, which may not necessarily be part of the law, would apply in the sense that, one, we know that you cannot put someone who is dead on a ballot, for election. So I expect the EC to remove, the person from the ballot. That is the first step. Now, there will be other questions as to, we balloted for positions, and the positions are based on numbers. So, for example, we have someone contesting and says that number 1, and he has designed their campaign and everything to be number 1. And then there's number 8 and there's number 4. Everyone, number 12 says 12 apostles in that regard. So, people, these things matter. But in the absence of any explicit, provision, I would assume that there will be reballoting for the position, but then that also comes with cost and other effects. So if the parties, let's say the candidates on the ballot can also reach a consensus to keep their numbers. But these are administrative processes, and I think common sense will be a better guide than even
law.
Law. Yeah.
Because as you are saying, let's be practical. NDC campaign on number 8, right?
Yeah.
So if for some reason number 3 is not there, but number 3 is not
number 7,
is not replaced, does number 4 become 3, 5 become 4, or we should say maintain the 14 and make number 3 blank? Do you understand? Because as you are saying, for practical purposes, somebody's number 13 and their campaigning is I'm number 13. Somebody's number 18, I'm number 8. Now, if we don't want to incur the cost of reballoting, do we then say the 3 is no longer there, so EC should just put a blank spot there? Number 2, EC itself can say I've spent money already printing. It's 40 days to an election. Some people have started printing already. Should EC cancel all that and reprint based on new numbers, or simply say black out the number 3 because they couldn't replace? These are matters that are a bit confusing and complicated, and there's no legal precedent here. So I'm not sure how common sense. But I just want your comment, your thoughts on that, because if I say I've campaigned on number 10 and therefore I've invested 1 million cedis on number 10, any other number there will affect me. It will be injurious to my chances. What's the practical thing the EC should do here?
Yeah, so first of all, it points to the danger of actually campaigning on numbers instead of symbols. That is the first thing we have learned, or we can learn from this, that contesting or campaigning heavily on the position on the ballot paper can be very expensive. That is why I think we also have symbols and then we have pictures. So that's the first thing. And the second point is, I think those political parties that have campaigned heavily on numbers will not be willing to, as it were, change their positions on the ballot box. Because I can see, for example, MPP, which seem to be enjoying number 1, and NDC very happily campaigning on number 8. They will be very burdened with cost of signaling. So in the light of this, I believe that even the candidates themselves, when they meet with the EC over this, maybe an IPAC session, they would want their position to be there. Then the EC would have to, I don't know whether they have to put a blank spot there, but that also creates another danger for those of us who are interested in democracy and free election. We will also be worried that you have a blank spot, where people will be going to vote for the blank spot, and that is will affect the election anyway. So, like you, I'm also in a very difficult position, and I'm still actually searching to see if there's any precedent anywhere for handling of these kind of things. So I am unable to actually make any specific, statements on this, just as you find yourself in that situation.
Wow.
All I know is that common sense would be a better guide in these circumstances. But there's another thing which we should, about the nomination fee, the filing fee. I think there's a provision which says that the EC should refund the money to persons who have died, either to the person's personal representative or the persons who paid the money. That is if they are not going to be, if the person dies. So in this case, the money will be refunded, and if there's a refiling, they would have to bring the money back, or they will just balance their books. You credit me, and then I debit you, and it still stands where it is.
So sometimes common sense is better than common law. Yeah.
I am unable to agree.
No, I say sometimes. I think based on everything you said, you don't even need to say it. It's implied. Thank you. Thank you very much, Justice I. I'm not saying that common law is not good. I'm saying that sometimes common sense or good sense is better than common law, because as you already admitted, the law, if we were all behaving predictably and reasonably, there will be, in fact, the reason we are multiplying lawyers is because of our own lawlessness as a citizenry. Because if you take my pen and you don't give it back to me, I'll go to Sky and say you should compel the court to give it back to me. But if you give me my pen back normally, Sky will be unemployed. But because of our misbehavior, that Sky is learning all the law is learning.
Put it this way.
No, I finished you.
Yeah, put it this way. Two people agree that I will give you my pen.
Yes.
You give me 10 Ghana cedi for
Yes.
it, and you should give it to me within 10 days.
Simple.
You have written that down. Now everybody sees it.
It's normal.
This is how it has to be. Then 10 days has come. You have collected my pen.
You don't want to give me the
You
thing.
won't want to give it back. You see.
That's when I need you.
Is it that?
So if we want a better society, we don't need more lawyers. We just need better behavior.
Truth.
Because if we had better behavior, then the laws would then be using their imagination to craft other things, like maybe how to go to space and things, not how to settle fight. So that our lawyers can use their sense to do more important things than to say Nathan has taken Aloski's pen, he's not giving him back. A judge will compel him to give it back. Pay a good. They can now come up with laws to say, oh, if a man wants to go to space, what must he consider? More human advancement. When I don't need to see right now, everything thought, hey, it's not good.
But also, just to mention, to wrap up the point I was making, I think it would also be helpful if the EC provided some information on their site. I've been on their site extensively trying to find information on the 15 political parties or so.
And the names of the party officials on EC's website.
No, you see.
Oh, but that should be there.
Yeah,
that should be there.
maybe it is,
That
but I
should be
haven't
there.
seen it. I've browsed quite extensively.
That should be there.
Through it with my other colleagues.
Because
we
you
haven't found
think
anything.
that the political parties in an election should have information on them,
on the EC's,
or if for nothing at all, links to their parties must be on the EC side.
Yes.
So that you said this is a party. Where is the party's
I
digital location?
I honestly believe, without evidence to show for the same, that many of the political parties in the presidential elections don't even satisfy the constitutional requirement. I know it's too early to say.
You haven't tested it by some way.
Yeah, but I have a strong feeling because, I mean, as Godfrey was saying, drive around the country.
You don't see anything.
There's a specific constitutional provision fortified by an act as to how many constituencies you should have offices in
to even qualify to
even enjoy registration as a political party. We don't, but you see, the issue is, if the EC does it right now, somebody will go to court and all. But that is where we should be.
And the other point is that
because look at it today, it might seem a mundane matter because it's a small political party.
Let it be a big one.
Let it be a big one.
And the other point too is that a political party must not contest a presidential election. You can be a political party that says we are contesting parliamentary to build our base. But it looks like people don't say anything for 3.5 years. 6 months to election, they emerge, and then they go and file to be presidential candidate
and make money.
And then, the whole idea of building, and you know the funny thing, the reason they are not able to contest the duopoly is that the duopoly are the only people who work round the clock.
Yes, they are
so
machines.
in the 4 years
machines.
that you are sleeping and waiting for something, they are working.
Yes.
Then you emerge in the 3.5 years and say you want to be president. If you had even said, well, let me build 10 seats, 15 gradually. So I think that we need to rethink. Maybe EC needs to be firmer on getting the parties to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Right. Let's read Caleb. What are the people saying about this situation?
Right, a lot of comments coming through. Evans from Gulf City is asking what will happen to all the ballot papers that the EC has printed. And then Kwesi Anfield from Wager is saying, I would be very happy if the GFP candidate is taking off the ballot totally so that the parties do a re-balloting. We need to try this to make the whole election a bit fun. We are already stressed.
We don't need fun. We want fun. This guy.
Good morning, Bernard and team. The issue is here. One, is the running mate ready and willing to contest the election? Two, I suspect the party will withdraw from the election. This is from Joseph Akumaglo from Agona Kwenyako. Good morning, Bernard. I think you are wrong here and Sky is right. If the running mate can automatically take up the role as the candidate, then in the worst of scenarios, a running mate can actually secretly... Okay, right. I see you.
Yeah, that's confusing you.
No, I get his point. Albert is saying that people can actually do things to clear the flag bearer so they can take their place in the event that is that automatic.
And somebody even raised a question. My argument is wrong because if the person replaces automatically, what happens if the person was second?
Yeah.
Right? So like you were saying,
in the contest.
if the person had a close contest and was second, why should the choice of the winner... So I think your point is solid. The party has to take a proactive position to talk to the EC. All right.
Okay, we're not taking it. Good morning, Bernard. Please, your argument is very true, and I think your entire our entire constitution needs a total.
My argument is actually false, based on what has been what has been concluded today. All right.
Hello, Bernard. During the GFP primaries, Akua Donkor did not go unopposed. Don't you think the person who came second can wish to become the presidential candidate instead of the running mate?
Fair point.
The superior argument has won the day.
But who opposed Akua Donkor? When did they do their congress?
The fact that you don't know doesn't mean it didn't happen.
So that's the point he's making. So hypothetically, whoever came second would say, well, why not me?
She's next in line, he or she. Yeah. Okay, Bernard and team, guys, I'm shocked that you're discussing this matter. You go discuss that, no solution. Even things that are clear in black and white in the Constitution, 275 MPs, a Speaker and a Supreme Court are struggling to find interpretation. Relax, this too shall pass. Kwesi Akwa from Sakuma.
I see the reason why this is important is the Sky makes a fantastic policy. It must sound like, oh, Charlie, this one is a stretch. But we need clarity on situations like this. And if there is no clarity, provision has to be made to forestall a situation where this could become a problem one day. So once it's come up, take it into account and fix it.
Yes. So a lot depends on what GFP does in informing the EC and in proactively replacing the candidate. EC also needs some time because they have to reprint the ballots with the face of the new person. If GFP fails to act, EC may have to remove the name of the party, and they have to give themselves a reasonable time to wait. So a lot depends on what GFP does between now and at least 10 days.
Yeah, and you see, that is where a lot of hands will be involved. Because with the greatest respect, I think it is in some people's interest for GFP to withdraw from the race.
You think
and
so?
It is in other people's interest to have them maintained. The reason is that, look, while you may not necessarily care about these numbers and what they mean in the elections proper, the fact is that some people have marketed, as we've discussed, specific numbers in the elections. Now, they going out of the elections would distort the plans of people beneath. They staying in the elections will make sure that those plans remain intact. Now, I raised a question, and the respected Justice Sensai also alluded to the point. If you black out a candidate in order to maintain the order in which people appear subsequently, what you're doing is you're providing an opportunity for spot ballots to go up, because there are people who go back there and vote for that same, slot in any event.
Can I not say that when I balloted against 13 people? So if one of the 14 of us is no longer there, it's only fair to reballot. Can I not say that?
Yeah, that's a valid argument, but some people would argue. Most like the people who are enjoying the
position that is
the preeminent or whatever prominent positions they have now, will say no. Look, it's just one person that is dead, so you should do A, B, C, D.
But that person's death. So see, Sky, that's why Justice Said says something. Sometimes common sense is better than common law, because you see, you can have two arguments. You can say, as you said, that when we balloted, the position we chose has its implications. So when you chose number 8. The implication of number 8 is that if there's a reshuffle based on somebody inside moving, number 8 can move. But somebody can say, it was 8 I chose, so 8 it must remain. Okay. Which is why sometimes consensus and common sense prevails. Because if you want to push this, where will you go?
That's the issue. But you see, as we know with our political parties,
they don't
do what is common sense.
Richard, I have a question. I have a question, though. So now that I've seen the notice of poll, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's out
for the parliamentary. For the parliamentary notice of poll, is the presidential notice of poll?
I have not seen it.
I think the parliamentary.
Okay, I'll have to. I just want to. Okay, so assuming the presidential notice of poll is out,
you have to withdraw it,
and this happens, what does the EC do? Does it have to withdraw the notice of poll and figure out what the next step is? Assuming, for example, all these other options we've discussed, i.e., GFP not being able to bring a new candidate and all of that. So if that's the case, does the EC withdraw the notice of poll, do a new one, looking at all the permutations?
In my respectful view, I think that's what should happen. They should withdraw the ones that are already in circulation and substitute the same with what will ultimately become the order of the day. As citizens, let's be mindful that, look, democracy, we have chosen democracy. It is an expensive process. That is why when a member of parliament dies more than 6 months for an election, we re-elect somebody to sit in there. It is irrelevant that we are spending so much money on it. Some people say we should use another process. So, yes, the cost of running a democracy we will always bear. So this death, unfortunate as it is and tragic as it is, has opened our eyes to new realities. That, yes, we may have spent a lot of money, but if the situation calls for spending more money, which perhaps would have been within the reasonable contemplation of the Electoral Commission when they were submitting their budget, we have to spend the money because that's the situation we have. Because if you don't deal with it properly, the NDC will complain, the MPP will complain. These are the two major political parties that are actually in this race. The rest are there for whatever reason they are in there. For some people will say nuisance value and all of that. But the reality is that this is a race between the MPP and the NDC. And trust me, in the coming days, there will be a major battle as to what should happen and what should not happen. There will be people who will be going to the DFP to tell them that they should withdraw from the race and let it have implications. There will be people who will be going to tell them that please stay in the race. All of these things will have implications regardless of how
very interesting.